Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Cloud Architects podcast. Today, with mirth and double antipodean action. And Warren, Chris, it's an absolute joy to have both of you. Before we start derailing ourselves with too much mirth and humor, because pre-recording it was quite lively, Chris, tell us who we are recording with today.
That's right. We're back once again. We've dusted off the microphones and pushed the cobwebs off the cameras for episode 101. And we're very, very excited today. We're going to be talking a little bit about AI and trying to sort of set the state of AI in 2026. And we thought, well, the best guest possible for us to talk to about this topic is James Westall. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Pleasure to be here. I'm an AI MVP by Microsoft, so kind of fell into that moniker title role. But I spend my days mostly talking to clients around AI adoption across the ANZ market. So I get all sorts of questions like, what should my AI strategy be? Nice and thoughtful, all the way through to, can I have an agentic, please? Just download and install one. So yeah, very happy to be here.
James, before we get serious, before the show, we had a little bit of an irreverent moment, and bear in mind the industry that you're in, you said your MVP stands for?
Most valuable poser. Everyone seems to be kind of screaming at the mountain right now that I'm the best at AI. Like, we all know what we're doing, but let's be realistic. Like, everyone's making it up as they go along, and anyone who says otherwise is maybe not paying attention.
I love that.
You said something interesting, I guess, in your intro there, where you were talking about strategy, right? Because I feel like that's a really sort of important point here as well when we start talking AI, because I said this earlier in the show, and it's sort of the summary for this is if 2025 or 2024 was like the year of the LLM and 2025 was this sort of the year of the agent, right? What are we doing in 2026? And people have been just continuing to run towards this thing. And I often find that folks that are making the most noise, when you ask them about their strategy, they don't have one, right? And they have no way of measuring return on investment either, because obviously there's no strategy. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. Like, are we finding more organizations actually coming around to saying, actually, hold on, before I jump into this thing, let me actually think about what I want to achieve and how I measure that success?
I want to say yes, but I still see the wrong behaviors at times. So you talk about like 2025, 2024 being the years of AI and agentic. Like 2025 had this kind of undertone of, we want an agentic, but we learned all the lessons last year. Like, you hear people talking about, we did the pot graveyard and it wasn't successful, so we need to measure and those sorts of things. Realistically, towards the end of the year, like, I kind of felt that people were still falling into that hype trap. Like, they're like, I learned the lessons about how to not measure a RAG app and not generate value in 2024. So I'm going to build an agentic in 2025. And agentic solutions, the term is so nebulous, but I'm going to do that in 2025. I'm not going to know how to measure it. To go to your question, Chris, I reckon 2026 is the other side of that, hype curve. Like, I feel like 2026, you're going to go into it and we're going to start to see expectations be remet with respect to like model supremacy, like who's better or not. Like, it's not an argument. It's just a religious debate, really.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that already. Hey,
Yeah.
like, you can see that with regards to the models already, who's chosen what, where, and who's winning the race, and how people have adopted the religion. Like, I mean, if we had to go around the room here, who's adopted the religion of Claude with a U? I mean,
I feel like it's balancing towards like enterprise versus consumer in that respect. For work, like, most people who are using AI in anger have gravitated towards like a Google or an Anthropic model. And your language models from OpenAI are just...
Well, the real rebels are using Grok, right?
Yes, sure. Whereas
Or the lonely ones.
Yeah, maybe. If you said to a consumer off the street, hey, what's the AI thing? You still get the kind of instinctive, I want a ChatGPT. Like, I feel like it's splitting between consumer versus enterprise, overall.
Is it fair to say that ChatGPT is the Kellogg's of our AI generation?
That's the dictionary word. You're going to GPT something, right?
Yeah, it's about the brand recognition, right? So if we think of, we still call vacuum cleaners Hoovers and photocopiers Xeroxes. So if we think about what chat is in a large language model context, we call it ChatGPT because that was the first to market.
Well, my favorite ChatGPT.
Yeah. I gave a talk at AI Tour here in Johannesburg about AI readiness. And the thing is, it depends on who you are and what you're trying to sell. Independent research, but sponsored by Microsoft. So Microsoft paid for the independent research. They found that there was like 4 types of companies, right? You had, and every time I hear this word, frontier firm, I don't know, I think of like a Western movie,
Wild West.
wild, like
Wagons.
carts and horses and stuff. Frontier. I don't know. Lord alone knows why they chose frontier. I mean, I'm going to start just thinking of Star Trek. Okay, frontier. Okay, but you got the frontier guys who are actually doing something with it. All right, they've adopted it. They've got the correct organizational skills. They've got money thrown towards it, and they're sort of making something happen because there are customers or organizations that are doing something with it. They're saving time using Copilot, and they're able to actually gauge that. They're able to report on that and say, our people are actually more efficient. Our developers are more efficient because they have Copilot of some sort. Then you've got the other guys where you've got the observers who don't do nothing. They're just being left behind. And then you've got one set of guys who have the organizational readiness. They're good to go, but they're still on-prem. They can't do anything. Like there's no cloud native. They can't plug anything in. Their data's all over the place. And then you've got the other side where they've got lots of money, but they don't have the organizational readiness to do anything with it. So they're in cloud, they're cool, whatever the case may be is, but they don't actually have the thought process on how they're going to get there. Do you think that's what you see?
Yeah, I'm seeing less of the third one where you've got an on-prem operating customer. Like I haven't had a request of, hey, I put Copilot on SharePoint 2013 recently, but definitely seeing, organizations, and the last category is probably the most common one where they've got all the shiny toys and they're just going, okay, how do I execute on this? Or what's the process associated with that? And they just don't have a wrap on how to actually go, okay, here's how I identify use cases, and identify that meaningfully that they have value. Because what I find that most organizations in that last category do is they fund a backlog. They go, I've got 150 use cases. And then just throws the money at the first 5 without actually doing the serious kind of activity of asking of like, is this the right approach? Or are we thinking too small? Like that's a really common one. They go, I've got a use case. I'm just going to focus on this one thing. But if you look at the frontier firms, they look at like a process, like end to end. And they turn around and say, okay, I've got 10 steps in this process. That's 10 opportunities for me to implement AI. And it's not one, it's the sum of its parts that actually deliver value. Whereas the ones that are all through the shiny toys and the capability are still lacking that kind of systems thinking approach.
Agree. That's a really nice way of looking at it. Yeah. There's 10 opportunities in a specific workload. I like that.
Well, I keep telling people like Unix has had for years this kind of attitude with like CLI. CLIs do one thing, do it really, really well. Like that's what we should have with AI. Do one AI that does one task.
What about cost? Are we at a point now where the costs associated with this sort of known and accepted by folks, or are there still businesses that are jumping in and then going, oh my goodness, that bill, that's rough, right? Because I know when you look at, for example, like the SEU stuff in Azure and M365, like it adds up so quickly. It's really hard to predict. And so I'm curious about whether customers are still getting surprised or sticker shock at all.
I think 100%. Like you've got, and realistically, it just comes back to like perceived value. If you're spending $5,000 a month on something and you suddenly get that sticker value and you actually go, you know what, I'm not saving enough time for that to be justified, then of course you're getting sticker shock. I had someone recently approach me and say, we've shifted gears. We were spending X amount on our service that we deployed, and we realized that Copilot can do 30% of it. And there's more perceived value in spending money on Copilot than there is on, the Azure consumption. The SCU's example with Sentinel, cynically for a while, that was just a good way for Microsoft to sell a PTU capacity into the data center.
I think that makes sense. I think folks are still wrangling that, trying to wrangle that problem. They're not, with the announcement of the SCUs for M365 E5 users and organizations, and the sort of free compute units that those organizations are getting, I think they're in as well, right? There's going to be this, so they're going to start playing with that, and very quickly they're going to probably figure out that, if you start doing anything advanced, you're going to run into overages and whatnot pretty quickly. So,
and also it's expensive. Like if you go, I'm using it, and it's not like you think you can achieve the same outcome by people power. then you're going to go, well, why am I spending X amount per month on this? Like, it's not cheap.
That's fair. That's fair. It's not cheap. So, James, would it be fair to say, or is it too early to say, that we are still very much in the wishful thinking AI hype curve, and we haven't actually achieved much? We've achieved some things, but if we look at the overall cost of what we've spent as an industry, the cost has been very much FOMO and hype driven, and we don't actually have massive return yet where we can say, here's a clear use case and here's a clear return.
I feel like there is a clear use case, but I feel like no one has measured it. We spent all this money, like as a whole industry, like billions and billions and billions of dollars. And I don't know how you would even go to measure it on a national scale, let alone a global one. And even then, you take all like companies are struggling to measure internally.
If you have to look at like the data that's gone into OpenAI and how much money they make, they run at a loss, like an astronomical, huge, incredible loss. It's retarded how much money they lose. And if they don't get another round of funding, they'll go in. It's like one of those things where, again, you touch on the Microsoft stock price. They backed OpenAI. They're in there for the long haul, and people are concerned because when you use ChatGPT, you're using Azure, right? It all runs in Azure. So if OpenAI is running at a loss, then so is Microsoft at some point. So if you go all the way back to the capacity side of things, where the actual service provider that's buying the GPUs, it's completely a loss. Like there's no value whatsoever. But if you go like sort of just a couple of layers up, and then you go to like, I don't know, software dev companies that are developing, those guys are really achieving great value for money because they're saving thousands and thousands of dev hours. So I think it depends on which layer you're looking at. I guess there's also that.
Is that real though? Because everyone's talking about how Claude is just spitting out code for them, right? But is it real sustainable software development lifecycle stuff where they really are saving hundreds and hundreds of hours? The code itself works, can be debugged correctly, can be troubleshooted. Because in my mind, I'm still thinking this is someone's writing an app that's great. As soon as that app doesn't actually execute or do what it needs to do, they have no idea how to go back and fix this thing because they didn't write any of that code themselves, right? I mean,
they can still read it though. I think a lot of people mistake the developers inside of a company like Anthropic or Microsoft as being vibe coders. They're not. They're developers. So a developer can read what Claude has written, or a developer can read what OpenAI has written. When that pull request goes in and it's been written and it's passed all those unit tests and they're going to hit the approve button, they know exactly what they're approving. It's not like it's just, running rampant and just doing whatever it needs to and then hitting the go button. At the end of the day, those unit tests are also there to make sure that the software works. So, yeah.
The only gap is you're assuming that usage is within a mature software organization that actually, follows good process.
Sure.
The biggest, most interesting thing I'm seeing is like, especially like younger devs, like they're just full of building stuff with Cursor or Claude. You insert whatever.
That's dangerous.
They know from the old person in the room going, hey, you should have unit tests, that they should have unit tests, or like they know those practices, so they implement them. And I think the really interesting thing is often they generate good code, like whether it's vibe coded or not, it will pass general standards by most people. But when it blows up at 2 a.m. and they've got 72 red blinky lights on their monitoring dashboard, they're actually missing the skill set or the thinking to actually fix it. And you're just watching them like paste their log straight into Claude and going, please fix.
So us old guys have still got a job for at least a while.
Yeah, 100% for a while at least.
I'd like to take us all back just a step, because we were talking about this massive investment from Microsoft, and we forget the amount of fiber that was laid in the ground in the beginning of .com, and the investment that the telcos made. And on the other side of that, we massively, massively benefit from that. Now, if we think about this, and Microsoft is well known for taking big bets, and so far, a lot of the big bets have paid off. cloud as an example, the M365, Azure, the reason why we're even here and doing what we're doing as MVPs is because Microsoft made those big bets. Is this not another big bet? And is it too early to say that this is actually the kind of thing that we think is going to go well, because Microsoft is actually quite famous for making big bets and then coming out ahead? Or are we saying, oh dear, it looks like it may not be going so well for Microsoft because, well, it's costing a lot of money at the moment, but big bets do in the beginning.
When we quantify that as well, right? What was the spend last quarter? $39 billion on AI infrastructure.
Sure. But let's just remember that when we thought $1 billion was a lot of money, Microsoft was $3 billion invested when they made the announcement in M365, or in those days, Office 365, saying it has to work. We can't go backwards because we've spent too much money. So it's a multiple from that, right? So a friend of mine likes to say you're just adding zeros and the scale is larger, but what we're doing is effectively still the same.
I think we talked about this before the podcast, but I feel like it's a bet that it will play off, because it seems like if you watch Microsoft, their strategy is they haven't gone all in on one provider. Like, they do have a strategy that is kind of hedging their bets across different ranges, which is, like, from a business sense, really smart. But also at the same time, like, sure, it blows up in their face. Like, what's the problem? They'll just get rid of the OpenAI consumption and allocate it back to data centers, and we can finally deploy a D-series VM in East US again. Or, like, you can just have some capacity back. Like, I feel like they've bought so much hardware. Like, if the scale's down, oh no, we'll just reallocate it.
Yeah, geez, capacity, story of my life.
I mean, I think it's a valid point, right? I think they're definitely going all in on this, and obviously, if you think about this sort of a little bit differently, this was Satya's bet, right? This is what he wants to build his legacy on as well, and he's all in, and he's driving it. It's an interesting place to go. They're moving so quickly, and I guess what I'm not experiencing with the customers that I work with now, bearing in mind too that I don't work like in the AI space specifically, right? But the customers that I'm working with, I don't see the adoption to back up the level of investment that we're seeing, right, from Microsoft and the amount of money that they're spending on this, right? And that's why I think between the four of us here, we represent a pretty large sample set of customers globally, right? So it's good to be able to talk to other folks and go, hey, what are you seeing, right? So I'd be interested, James, success stories that you've seen. Are there any where you can just, off the top of your head, where you can go, you know what, like, customer did this thing? It doesn't, we don't have to go into any sort of NDA disclosures here, but something that you've seen where you've gone, yep, you know what, this has worked out for them, right? They've automated the lunch ordering system to a point where people just think about a chicken sandwich and it arrives on their desk. What are you seeing?
I have seen quite a few success stories, but I think there's two kind of traits that I'm seeing that are kind of unique, that they're always there. The first one is they had a clear view of how they commercialized it. Like, internally, like, productivity is great and all, but who's geared to measure productivity? No one. Professional services is because you bill your minutes, but every other company, how do I know if Susie's effective or not? You don't, because you don't track that of her. The first trait that I've seen is that having a clear view of, here's how I'm going to charge someone for it. Because suddenly it becomes not can I just have an AI thing and I'm going to be more productive and then I'm going to save money? Because it's dark magic to measure that. It's not possible. But having I can charge someone for it, you can draw a line really quickly. And the second one is truly just having, like, a real big bet on, like, you recognize that it's going to change the way you work in a certain space and just go all in on that. Like, I've got a really good example with the law firm that we did some work with, where they went in early and they built, like, language model, like, specific RAG architectures and specific prompts to actually just automate their job. They went in super, super early, and they had a really janky UI early on, but it was productive. And they thought about it in two ways. One, they were going early. They knew they would probably have to reassess, so they were okay with that. And two, they were like, well, if this proves right, we can change our commercial model so we have higher profit margin. So they looked at it and said, well, yeah, in 6 months' time, we'll probably replace this with some other thing. And I think they actually did. They ended up buying, like, a Thomson Reuters AI thing or a Harvey or something like that, right? Like some other AI solution that did legal things. So they went in early, but they were able to teach their lawyers and, like, have their staff learn, really, really quickly. And then the other bit was they were, well, today for a certain task, we bill in 6-minute increments and it might take us 2 hours to do it. So it's X amount of dollars. But if we just build automation that does it, they just moved that task, that thing, to fixed price billing. So instead of spending 2 hours doing an NDA or whatever they were doing, they would do 10 of them in 1 hour, and they would charge 20 hours worth of work. Like, they had a clear view of, oh, we're going to adopt this and just commercialize it. Their clients didn't care. They were like, we love fixed price. We love that. Like, having that view of like, this is a big bet for us and we're going to go all in, and doing so early, being willing to pivot, and then having a clear view of how you actually commercialize it, even if it's an internal use case, is probably the success criteria in my mind.
Great. That's a great story, because it also touches on the job loss thing, like, a little bit, because there's obviously always this thing about, okay, AI is going to take people's jobs away. And then you'll read an article about whose job is going to take away first. And for some reason, it's always lawyers or paralegals or something. They're always in the front. It's always like, okay, you're going first because you're the easiest to take away. But in some ways, what they've done is they've sort of augmented it, made them more efficient, but it hasn't necessarily replaced them. I mean, it's not like people have lost their jobs there. The firm's making more cash, and it's freed up the lawyers to do other stuff. And that's actually refreshing to hear, because nobody got fired.
But I think that also speaks to having a strategy there, right? And the strategy is deeper than just, well, if we automate these 6 tasks, we can get rid of Susie and Johnny and Jeff over there, right? And because I think there's a lot of executive level folks and executive level conversations that go on that are exactly that. What's the AI strategy? Well, the AI strategy is we want to reduce our headcount by 10% so that we can pay for this thing, right? So that's a good point you made about, having that clear strategy. I think that makes
the strategy there was not to get rid of people. The strategy was just to be more efficient as a company. And I think that's the narrative I think that people need to start pushing. Make people better at their jobs. And I've always believed that. That's what I tell my kids. Because again, our kids are going into this, like, this new world where whatever they adopt now, when they leave school, they are leaving school with AI, whether they like it or not. And let's say my son wanted to be a lawyer. Now his perspective on being a lawyer is changing, but he could still become a lawyer, I suppose, but just a different lawyer. But he needs to know like where that is,
I think the real interesting thing is that these sorts of use cases, they never remove any responsibility. Like, your lawyers still have to go and actually fact check and do the work. Like, there's still work on the other side of it. So you're not getting rid of jobs.
Sure. And
there's stuff in the news, like I've seen it in the US and in Australia, where some lawyers submitted some hallucinated case reference and the judge has torn shreds off them, right? So there's still a burden of responsibility. So you can't just go, oh yeah, we'll do that and we'll get rid of people. But I think if you've got that clear strategy, there's so much more that you get out of it. That firm that I talked about, one of the benefits that they never intended getting was that their juniors could then get court time. So how that worked for those juniors is they would never go to court really until they started to kind of move up the ranks, because they were just doing their paperwork and it would get delegated to some senior lawyer that they were reporting to. So then they were able to say, well, actually they can go and spend time in the courtroom and learn, which is like so much better for their career overall. And it's much more interesting to them. There's massive benefit in having a good plan.
Yeah, this story just keeps getting better and better. I like it. I mean, that's the stories you want.
Yeah, 100%. Those are the things we want to hear. Until now, I think a lot of folks have this thing in their mind where AI is doing 2 things. 1, it's helping developers write code. And 2, it's automating people out of jobs. Being able to talk about some real world things, it makes a lot of sense. Following on from that, I wanted to ask about adoption, right? Because I think that's the next thing, is like when these tools are being discussed and used and implemented, and it's all just sort of exec level speak, how are we seeing folks actually adopt them? Do you think your general information worker is happy to be more productive in general? I would think yes. Or do you think folks are sort of kicking and screaming because it's a change to what they're used to? Any experiences on that, James?
Uniquely, like the grumpy person to me is like, a lot of people just want to show up to work and do 9 to 5 and go home. I don't care if an AI helps them or not. Like, that's my cynical view of the world.
Yeah.
But I'm finding that there's people who are super open to using it and they realize they can get more in their day and they're happy with it. I'm finding that adoption for the second category, who are kicking and screaming, is when it's oversold. You go into a client and say, hey, here's Copilot. It's going to do your PowerPoint for you. Like, have you ever asked Copilot to do a PowerPoint? It's abhorrent.
It's terrible.
Yeah. And I was excited recently and someone said, oh, Claude can do it. So I went and spent like 4 hours on Claude and it was also abhorrent. It's not just
it was better though.
It was better. I'll give you that. Like, it was way better. Like, but it was still pretty average. So
Yeah.
the thing is, when you see the execs come in and they do this kind of all singing, all dancing conga line through the business, saying, "Hey, AI is amazing. You should use it. It's going to make your life so much more awesome." Like, those kicking and screaming people are just very quick to drop the solution when it doesn't meet that hype.
Mm.
Whereas if you go into a team and say, "Hey, I've got a tool. It will make your life better, but it is not a panacea for thinking. You do need to think and use this tool in the right way." Then it's a bit better. And that I find that language also with resistant teams is really well received, where you almost downplay the capability. You say it's going to make your life better, but I'm not going to take away your job, is what they hear, right? Which is really important.
That's interesting. I mean, I'd say that I'll be the first to admit that tracks with my personal experience, right? Because I've been one of the slow adopters, I think, compared to Warren, who has his whole house just ordering chicken sandwiches. I've been a slow adopter as far as the tools go. I'm obviously aware of all of the things that are available in there. At GitHub Copilot, I use all the time, and I'd found that early on to be very, very helpful for my productivity.
Magical even.
Right. But I've been reluctant with the whole, like, build me a PowerPoint. Like, nah, I'm not going to argue with a Copilot about whether the PowerPoint is correct or not. Like, I know what I like. I'll go do that thing myself, right? But I have found over time, internally, we have tools available to us. We're not told how we need to use these tools. They're just available to us and we can use them. And I have found over time that I've been using certain of the tools a lot more than I used to, because once I figure out, hey, this is making my life easier, I can churn out a little bit more work today than I could yesterday. So I'm gonna do it. So I think that definitely tracks, right? I won't go too deep into the story, but my missus, they've made a very big investment in some AI tooling, and the message that they receive is this thing is going to change everything for everyone, right? And like you said, sometimes I think these things get hyped up just a little bit too much, and then they don't always live up to that sort of expectation from everyone.
Yeah, I think it also just depends on the type of person you are and how you're willing to embrace change. I think it's
not at all is the answer.
It's the same, like it's the same people that, didn't want to adopt specific technologies when they came out at first, and then at some point that they were forced to, like as they came along. Look, I've been thrown in the deep end of working for the company I do. I find that the secret sauce is people don't realize how much you can make it your own. Like customizations, simple things like changing your system prompt, even in Copilot. So like go into your Outlook, go into Copilot and say, this is how you like your emails written. Tell it that that's how you speak. You don't speak like that, you speak like this. Or go into your GitHub Copilot MD or your Claude.md or whatever it is that you're using and instruct it. Or even if you like go onto GitHub, there's thousands of repos where these guys have come up with these really awesome system prompts, like absolute mode. Don't use emojis. Don't use hyphens. Be direct. Give me your confidence score as you go along. Give me 3 options, whatever it is. And then it sort of comes out with these things. And I'm teaching my kids this as well. I bring my kids into it again, teach them to make the ChatGPT their own. And we've had to obviously get something like Open Web UI in the house, which allows me to connect to model APIs, but give everybody their own login so they can choose the models that they want to use, but also keeps like profiles separate. Otherwise, I'm paying for 17 different ChatGPT subscriptions, because now that it's got memory and it's starting to learn who you are, ChatGPT thought that, I was like a high school math student, which is becoming a bit of a problem. So you sort of have to move that around. But once you realize how much you can customize it toward your own, again, that learning curve starts to change because it knows me. That's great. It's my friend now.
Yeah, like my experience with Copilot in the email was like I'd get it to write an email and then get really angry and rewrite the email. And then someone's like, like custom. I was like, what? And like now I use it daily, like hourly, like just that learning of like, here's how you do a simple customization. Like, I didn't know that was possible. It's like, yeah. Okay.
But that also speaks to, you don't have to go from zero to hero, right, with this stuff.
No.
I think that because I think everyone's always looking for the most complex, the most complicated, the most sort of shoot the lights out use case, where something as simple as that could be all you need to save 20 minutes a day or half an hour a day or whatever it is, right? And incrementally that stuff adds up, and all of a sudden that justifies the license cost for things that you probably didn't use before.
Yeah, you see that teaching people, you got to start them low and just go, hey, here's the simple things you can do to make your life good. To your point, I'm seeing some architects, they go, oh, I'm just going to do this thing with AI. And you're like, but why? I had someone recently go, hey, I've got point-to-point integrations that you would traditionally run through a standard integration platform, like a MuleSoft or a Boomi or an Azure integration, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Like, oh, we're just going to put an agent in the middle and we're going to plumb it all together with MCP. You're like, yeah, cool. Like, you're going to put a non-deterministic system in something that needs reliability and needs to run all the time. They're like, yes. Like, you can't see any problems with that. You know, it's like being able to ask, should we use this or are we using it the right way is really important.
James, I think you've summarized where we are from a state of the nation going, we're using things and we are not asking the question of should we be using it. And sadly, since we came up to the top of the hour, before we let you go, we wanted to ask you, is there anything that you want to plug? Your LinkedIn profile, a website, GitHub repo? Is there any way that you want to be found on any of the socials?
Give us a look up on LinkedIn. More than happy to chat, or should take messages then and talk through any topics of the day. Send me your Claudebot configs.
And in terms of the show, I think what we have decided offline is that this is going to be a part 1 of 2 just on this topics. James has been an amazing first guest. Chris, you've got something else lined up for us. Do you want to give us a quick preview on that before we go?
Yeah, definitely thinking a lot about governance, and we're building all this cool stuff. We're letting all these agents run wild. I think being able to put some sort of governance layer on that is really important. Probably more so for businesses, obviously, than for Joe Blow consumer. But yeah, definitely thinking about that, and that might be something coming up in a later episode.
Yeah. So coming to a podcast near you. Stay tuned, folks. And
Protect your bank account, kids.
Always protect your bank account. Warren, Chris, James, it's been absolutely magical. And thank you for episode 101 of the Cloud Architects podcast.